Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. It is Sunday. That means it's Jaybe showtime. Good to see all of you here joining me on this live stream today. Wow, August 24th, 2025. Guys, it's so good to be back with you. It's been a little over a week, about 2 weeks ago since I saw you. And so it's good to be back and being able to have a conversation with y'all. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps out very much to be able to reach more people so that we can be able to spread the message as well as encourage people to be activated. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever we go live, upload clips. So you guys have that there. And also, if you guys would like to get in contact with us, you can always get in contact with us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So you guys send us any stories that you find interesting or any encouraging words that you guys may have for us there. Well, first of all, before I get to saying hello to people in the comments and chat, I want to put y'all on to something. Let me put you on to something. I got to say on like Sabby. First thing I ever noticed about her whenever I heard her speak. What's going on? Anyway, so guys, if you want to step up your tea game, right? One thing, some people like me, I like a lot of lemon in my tea, right? But one thing you should always do is, see this there? That's lemon zest. Put a little bit of lemon zest in your tea too. And let me tell you, once you pour the hot water over the lemon zest in the tea bags, guess what happens? There's lemon oil in that zest and it gets released with the heat and it gets the lemon oil inside the tea. And then once you put that lemon juice in there and that honey, whew. Now I cannot consume ginger anymore because of the medications I'm on, because of my transplant. But if you can consume ginger, take a couple pieces of ginger, put them in there too. Oh my gosh, the tea game. Oh, the tea game. Oh, it's so delicious. And it just hits the spot. I'm telling y'all, up your tea game. For real, for real. Oh, hang on. I need to be left alone just for a second. Hang on. Oh, Lord. Lord have mercy. Mercy. Anyway, I didn't want y'all to see me sipping on tea like that. This is a family show. Anyway, let's say hello to everybody in the comments. Good to see all of you guys here. All right, we're going to go first off. We got a Rumble chat coming in, being first. Okay, let's talk about it. Cheddar Steve says, yo, first. Absolutely. Good to see you, Steve. I like the black cat emoji you got there. Not emoji, but the thumbnail you have. Thank you very much for coming in. We have Crazy Cat saying, until I learned about the out of reach report from RBN, I thought I just needed to work on my budgeting. Now I know the fair market value for a one-bedroom apartment in Missouri. Yeah, we're actually going to be touching on that again today. And by the way, the whole National Low Income Housing Out of Reach report that's been given to us, I think we have to give that credit to Roger Meadows, because I don't know if it was Sabby that discovered it first or Roger, but I think it might have been Roger. I think either him or Sabby, but we got to give them their flowers for that. But turned me on to it, and now I'm just like, every July, every year, I'm like, when is it coming out? Because I want to know. And so yeah, give a shout out to Roger in the chat. I know he's in there. Speak of an angel, and he shall appear. Roger Meadows says, I'm glad you enjoyed Out of Reach. I am the one who supplied them, or at least Sabby on her channel, since 2021. And I've been studying that report since 2017. Okay, there you go. There's your answer. There you go. Thank you very much, Roger, for turning us on to that. Appreciate it. Giving us data. That's what we like. We like data. All right. Sean coming in saying, tuning in today after watching Heartland's Media. Oh yeah, that's right. Kit was doing his lunch stream, brunch stream. So good to see you. By the way, hope you were eating some brunch while you were watching him, because it's lunchtime now. Get you some lunch with Jaybe. It says, also sad we couldn't see you attending Gray Zone live in Jersey. And the crazy part is I'm actually originally from Jersey. But even if they invited me, I still wouldn't have been able to come because I couldn't afford it. You know, living on a fixed income presents a lot of challenges. One of them being I'm 1,100 miles away. So that would necessitate either having to, one, get a plane ticket, or what might be slightly cheaper is getting a train ticket or a bus ticket. But that also would mean more time for me to be able to do that. And plus, being on a train or a bus means that I'll be around people who I don't know for longer, and I'm just getting back out into regular society again, you know, being immunocompromised. And so the most safest bet will be on a plane because I'm not on there as long. So, I mean, to get to Newark is probably about a good 2-hour plane ride versus you got to figure about 25 hours by bus, right? So 10 times the amount of time. A train is probably 18, 19 hours by train. So you're still looking at almost 10 times the amount of time that I would be on there versus only 2 hours on a plane, right? Not including, you know, taxi time and, you know, sitting on the tarmac. So that's the only thing. But the biggest obstacle really is finances. So even if they invited me, I wouldn't be able to afford to go. But such is life. Thank you very much, Sean. We have Anna coming in saying, hi, Jaybe. Hi, Anna. Good to see you. All right. We have Deep Green says, hi, Jaybe. Hello, Deep Green. Good to see you. Corvid says, I've been homeless since 2015. I work full-time at well over minimum wage. There's literally nothing in Eugene and Springfield, Oregon, or within a 30-minute drive that 1/3 of my income can rent. And this is part of the issue, man. Be sure to take that poll. And you guys don't have to wait for the stories for this poll. This is really just a subjective poll. And the good thing about this poll is you guys don't have to say your name. You guys don't have to, you know, let people know how you voted. But I do want to get a synopsis of how our viewers are feeling in regards to housing. And so I would like for you guys to be able to take that poll as well, because, you know, a lot of times we'll talk about the unhoused or people who are housing insecure, and we really need to bring it home. We need to stop thinking about it in the abstract and bring it down to ground level. So this is why I want to do that poll. And if you guys would like to, you guys can take the poll. In fact, let me share it right quick, just so you guys, so that anybody watching on the rewatch, you know, sees exactly what we're talking about. So here we go. So take this poll. It says, I have to worry about paying my rent, mortgage, and it goes every month, every 3 to 6 months, once or twice a year, and then I never worry about rent or mortgage. So right now we're at 25 votes so far, but please make sure to take the poll, because there's a lot of us that are housing insecure, right? Me included. And so for a lot of us, we have to, this is a big concern for all of us, especially within this country. And I think it's important that we, you know, not only see that even the people that we're watching along with are going through this, but it also humanizes the people that we are in. And I'll be full disclosure. I am housing insecure. Like, even though I'm on a fixed income, like, I am housing insecure because it's like I have to choose what I spend my money on. Like, either if I can survive with a full month full of groceries, or I survive with rent. And so this is a thing that we constantly have to, like, constantly have to balance is like what priorities come first. So I already know rent comes first, which means that something else is going to suffer. So rent, internet is a complete necessity. Back in the day, it used to not be, but now it is. Phone is also a necessity, right? So, utilities like electric is also a necessity. So then what takes a back seat? Well, it's like it's easier to beg for food than it is to beg for money, right? Because people are willing to give food, but not as many people are willing to give money. See what I mean? So that's one of the biggest issues. But anyway, we'll get in more into that. What else? Yeah. Oh yeah. And Corbett says even in an RV spot without an RV, it's $1,000 a month. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It is wicked how this system is. Roger says, I caught you on Heartlands Media. I sent a super chat saying the Italian, the Jew, and the Amish Negro. This is going to be good. I saw that. Oh my gosh. Roger, don't you know no good? He says, don't forget, Jay, private equity on 401k and hospitals plus big tech fight against small town in Arizona. If not today, and maybe later on in the week, Tuesday or Thursday. Yeah, so I'll be probably talking about one or two of those stories. Some of the stories that I'm starting to get backlogged in stories, as hard as as difficult as that is, but I'm starting to get a little backlogged. So now I'm like, okay, I got to talk about these. I might end up having to do 4 segments instead of 3 this Tuesday. We'll see. All right. We have Mitsibits says, I'm technically homeless because I live with a parent. Yeah. Yeah. We got to talk about that too. Yep. Rondo says juggling every single month. Yep, absolutely. And then Anna says, for the purchasing power, the dollar has lost 95% of its value over the last 100 years and is accelerating. Inflation is a built-in haircut. Yeah. And then Anthony coming in. Good to see you. All right. You got Cowboy Kitty in the chat. Okay. So, says I live in a trailer park. Yeah. This is really for everybody. So one of the things I want to do is I wasn't planning on covering this today. I was going to try to cover this on Tuesday, but I just want to go over it really quick, just for a few minutes, because it's a very important story. I didn't have this on the title or the thumbnail, but I'll probably have it clipped, really quick, and then I'll probably go a little bit deeper on Tuesday. But one of the things that I wanted to share was that the Trump presidency, with the ICE raids, especially with what's going on across the country. And the thing is, like, I think still to this point, Trump still hasn't deported as many people as Biden. I always have to take a look at that again. But I know that Biden was very heavy-handed in deportations. The person who had the most was Barack Obama. But I think the one, thing that is happening under Donald Trump is there's a lot of people who are working towards becoming citizens, and they're being targeted as well. And so one of the things that I want to bring up is, and shout out to Cowboy Kitty for this one, for this story about a loved one that was targeted by ICE and is now in ICE custody. So let me share this. This was an article that was also shared by Heartlands Media, Kit Cabello. Shout out to him for sharing this. And I originally saw it on his channel. But this is out of Desert and Bloom Substack. It says how Ohio built a business on disappearing immigrants. It says an investigative report on how Ohio sheriffs turned traffic tickets into ICE money, arresting a working mother, and helped to make your country into a quiet deportation machine. So this came out earlier this month. So It says it all starts with a flicker of red and blue in the mirror. In Ohio, that's all it takes. A tag a month out, a stop sign interpreted too loosely, a state trooper with a quota, that's the doorway. What happens after has nothing to do with our traffic. This isn't theoretical. Ohio's been perfecting the traffic stop to deportation pipeline since at least early 2024. According to the American Immigration Council, the Ohio State Highway Patrol began colluding with Border Patrol agents at the Sandusky Bay Station to target Latino drivers in northern Ohio. They pulled over vehicles on flimsy pretexts, performed ID checks, and flagged names to DHS. That was the dress rehearsal. Now the tactic is statewide, weaponizing by local sheriffs with dollar signs in their eyes and ICE on speed dial. So this shows the ICE, the participating agencies. And if you notice, it's very heavy, especially in border states. Particularly if you look at Florida, where I live, it is extremely heavy in Florida. So, yeah, and also extremely heavy in Southeast Texas. So if you guys can see there. It says, under Trump's second term, sheriffs across Ohio have been deputized, some formally, some functionally, to act as federal immigration officers. Through the 287G program, local cops can be trained and authorized to make civil immigration arrests, usually under the banner of public safety. Portage County signed on. Others, like Mahoning County, didn't. They didn't need to. All it takes is a jail contract, a traffic stop, and the political will to disappear people for money. So it talks about Mahoning County. They didn't join 287G. They didn't need to. So it talks about Sheriff Jerry Green, who served 4 years as a Democrat before flipping to the GOP and running unopposed in 2024, made a simple deal. ICE pays $125 a day for each immigrant detained in the Mahoning County Justice Center. So as soon as Trump got elected, I contacted ICE in Cleveland and Homeland Security in Detroit and discussed with them that I would certainly have some open bed space. If they wanted to come and take a look at us in particular facility, they wanted to be a housing immigrants. With capacity up to 150 people, the deal is worth over $4.5 million a year. By April of 2025, Mahoning was already holding 95 ICE detainees a day. Most were picked up after minor stops and funneled into Green's jail like livestock into a butchery. And so it says one of them is Natalia Vochakova. She is a 54-year-old legal resident. She has lived in the United States for 9 years, working, raising her daughter, and applying for a green card. She was stopped in Portage County, reportedly over by the Ohio State Patrol for expired tags, and ended up in ICE custody. Her family has launched a GoFundMe to help with legal costs. If you're able, please check it out. Her story is what led me to investigate this entire pipeline. It says Natalia's bookings list her as charged with federal immigration and held in Mahoning County, but she was arrested in Portage right next door. Portage County is no ordinary county either. It's one that enthusiastically joined the 287G program and says that, remember, that's the formal ICE partnership that deputizes local cops as federal immigration agents, the one that they advertise on their website like they're selling you a cable service. Portage County Sheriff Bruce Jakowski didn't just accept immigration powers. He jumped at the chance to join ICE's enforcement network while already under fire for abusing his position. So this is an investigative article as well that's talking about the links between local police and ICE and what they're doing. And really it's just it sounds like it's really just a big money grab, especially from, prisons and jails to be able to house more people in detention. Now, if anybody knows, they know about Core Civic. Core Civic is actually a private prison, right? And so Core Civic, being a private prison, they're there to make money. And so, as you can see there, of course, ICE uses places like Core Civic. And so this just goes to show how a lot of people are being detained within our borders who are on a pathway to citizenship. And yet, because of minor infractions that you know, it could be a mistake, right? It's a misdemeanor. Next thing you know, they end up getting detained and deported over a misdemeanor. And so, you know, it's crazy. And the crazy part is, it's like, okay, Donald Trump is always talking about we're here to take out the bad people, the criminals. And I'm like, okay, so somebody was a little bit late on their tag. How many people have been late on their tag? Especially because they didn't have the money at the time, right? How many people, didn't fully stop at a stop sign? And if that is grounds for you being deported, well, then I guess that's grounds for you also being jailed on. And so then that means all of y'all are criminals. I don't have a driver's license. I don't drive a car. So therefore, I'm not a criminal. But the rest of y'all are. See what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like there's levels to this. And the problem is that they're doing this to somebody who is not even what they call an illegal, right? This is a person that's literally on the pathway to citizenship. They're a legal resident and they're working to get their green card. And yet, because of a misdemeanor, they are being detained and threatened with deportation. So really, and what is this? This is really just attacking a people with very little power. And because you're attacking the people with very little power, you are also making it so that they are afraid to ever step out of line when it comes to challenging power. And it also helps cause a division between citizens and non-citizens. So then there's a divide among the working class. And so this is what the system does. And the crazy part about it is, if she was a agricultural migrant worker, would she be faced with deportation? Because we all know that Donald Trump reversed on that one. Right? Ultimately, if you just want to get rid of all immigrants, okay, but you're going to have to get rid of, like, Donald Trump would literally have to get rid of his wife. But then it's like, oh, she came here illegally. Well, this person came here illegally too. So then what? You're going to go after Elon? Because he started here illegally. Oh, but he has not only the complexion for the protection, but he has the cash for the protection. I see. I get it. So this is also part of the class war. And so this is why it's so important for us to pay attention to what they do. Because ultimately, it starts with people like this, but then it doesn't just stop there. Because ultimately, like, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people are saying, well, it's only going to affect immigrants. It's already affecting citizens. And I don't trust this capitalist system to stop at just there. And the thing is, it's not actually about deporting them. It's about keeping the nation divided so that you'll have one set of people against another set of people. And they always have a group of people to exploit, right? But at the same time, because they're exploiting them, that also puts us under. So then we're fighting to have higher wages, but then they don't want to hire us because they're like, well, I can just get somebody who's undocumented. and hire them for cheap. So basically, this is NAFTA brought home. This is NAFTA brought to our soil. So instead of going outsourcing they're insourcing undocumented people in order to make sure that they can have more money in their pockets, so that the billionaire class and the parasite class can have more money in their pockets. So basically, NAFTA is basically chickens coming home to roost. But who is it harming? It's harming all of us. It's harming undocumented people. It's harming documented immigrants. It's harming us citizens, and the most vulnerable of us citizens, particularly those of us who are Black American. It's harming us because it's the corporate powers. And so always aim your ire at the people at the top. And I'm not just talking about politicians. No. I'm talking about the people higher than them. I'm talking about the people that's ultimately overseeing this system and trying to make us all victims of their greed and selfishness. Now, I'm leaving the GoFundMe link into the chat so you guys can have that. Then let me share the GoFundMe link. And I can talk about this a little bit more further on Tuesday. But I just wanted to cover this just for a little bit. But it says working mother taken by ICE. So far, they raised $1,177. So they're about a quarter of a way to their goal. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can all donate as well. So it's organized by Cowboy Kitty, who's in the chat right now. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. Because ultimately, like, this is a person that literally is here legally and they're being detained by ICE. They're being kidnapped. Let's call it what it really is, right? And so, yeah. Luke Carlos says ICE has already arrested Americans. If they arrest you and you document your citizenship, they're telling people, I don't care, which sounds like an arrest quota. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I've always been against things like private prisons. I mean, to be honest with you, it's horrible because now look at what they're doing. And then a lot of people will say, well, because they're, deporting a lot of these undocumented immigrants, that's actually going to make it more possible for us to be able to get those jobs and have better salaries. And while that may sound good on paper, do you absolutely think that the corporations, these parasite class, they're actually going to allow us to make demands and demand for better, more livable wages? No, the police are just going to ramp up what they're doing. And if they can't arrest any more undocumented immigrants because they're all gone, guess who they're going to come after next? They're going to come after us. And they're going to start arresting us under minor infractions and then having us work for slavery within their private prisons. I do not trust these parasites. I don't. Because guess what? That's what they're going to do. They're already doing it. Look at Angola prison in Louisiana. They still got Black Americans who are incarcerated picking cotton. You don't think that they're not going to go back to that? Capitalism always reverts back to its original form. Capitalism as ultimate form is chattel slavery. You don't think they ain't trying to go back to that? And of course they are. So this is why revolution is the most necessary means of changing the system. So shout out to Cowboy Kitty. Thank you very much for this. Shout out to Natalia. Thank you, and our thoughts are with you. So let's go into, well, before we do that, okay, I said the last name incorrectly. Belchkova. Okay, thank you very much. And Cowboy Kitty says, my sister-in-law. Okay. Interesting. Says she has an Ohio CDL, owns her own business and a box truck. So they also arrested a business owner and a truck driver. Wow. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. All right, everybody. So let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. This is going to be a show primarily about housing. And I want to get into this because housing is something that's close to my heart, because it is one of the absolute things that humans need. We as humans need, and nobody should go without. And so I want to get into this right now. So we're going to go into our thumbnail. So we're going to be talking about a couple things. We're going to talk about homelessness explosion. This is a story that came out of Orlando, the city where I live, and talking about what's happening now is people are now going to be homeless in the city of Orlando and Orange County, and they're pushing people out into the streets, literally. And so we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to get into this gentleman here. He's losing his home over water. And this is a story out of New York. So those of you who are in New York, if you guys have any more knowledge about this story, please feel free to share it in the comments. But I think this is also really important because this also speaks to what we have to deal with on a daily basis in regards to not just housing, but also the things involved in housing, like utilities. So I want to get into this right now. So imagine if you had an outstanding utility bill that you didn't know about. And because you didn't know about it, it went into collections. And then because it went into collections, you didn't know about it anymore. Or you didn't know about it at all. You had no idea it went into collections. And then somebody owns your home that you have owned for decades. And now you're being forced to move out. How would you feel? This is exactly what happened to a gentleman out of New York. And this is a crazy story. This happened to a gentleman by the name of Fillmore Brown. So I want to get into this story so that we can talk about this. And yeah, so let's get into it. When I heard this, it's making its rounds right now all over social media. So let's take a look. So this is the man in Brooklyn. All right.
An outstanding bill a Brooklyn homeowner didn't know about led him to being stripped of his title. Local officials are now demanding justice, and News 12's Valerie Ryan is breaking down the story.
Fillmore Brown owned this home on East 89th Street for over 3 decades until recently.
He only knew this was happening the day that they showed up to change the locks.
Brown's attorney says his home was sold at a foreclosure auction in December because of a $5,000 unpaid water bill issued in 2019. Now, this process is known as a lien sale, which sources say is when a property owner has an outstanding bill, the city can then sell those debts to a buyer. The issue here, Brown says, is he had no idea of any bills. Did you ever receive a notice?
I didn't get nothing. I get all my current bill and I pay them. Why wouldn't I pay that? You know, so I didn't get nothing. If I get it, I would pay attention to it.
The Department of Finance says homeowners have several options before that debt is sold. Sources say 5 notices were made to Mr. Brown by the DOF, while the Department of Environmental Protection issued these 2 bills in 2019, one before and after the lien sale. But local officials feel this is a systematic issue.
Every single avenue that you can think of seems to be designed to steal the wealth and homes from Black, brown, and immigrant New Yorkers.
Officials.
So let's get into this, because first of all, here's my question. And y'all tell me if I'm crazy or not. But how the hell did he get a $5,000 water bill in the first place? You see, if I had a $5,000 water bill, I would have spat out my tea and ruined my camera. How in the world did you get a $5,000 water bill? That means that you didn't pay your water bill for a couple of like 2 or 3 years. But if he's been paying his water bill the entire time, then how did he incur a $5,000 water bill? See, that's what I want to know. How did that charge come in the first place? Did it somehow get lost in the mail? Or did they not send it? Or did they have the wrong contact information? What happened? Also, while we're at it, if you paid off your home, but then you owe money to the utility company, how can they sell it to a trust, and then that trust can foreclose on it and auction it off? How, if you own the home, how could that happen? The house is yours. Utility is utility, but the home is yours. Like, I get shutting off his water. I get that, right? But taking the home? Does this sound right to y'all? How does that make any sense? Like, if I stop paying electric, the electric is shut off. They don't come and take the house away, right? Like, if I, unless it's written in the contract or the lease, right? If I stop paying electric to my apartment and the lights get shut off, I can still live in my apartment. It just won't have electricity. So if I don't pay for water, or if the water bill gets so high that they have to shut it off, then how is it that they can basically give your house away or allow people to take it? How is that logical? I want somebody to help me understand this, because it seems like the state or the municipality is engaging and partnering with something predatory. Let's continue. This is wild.
Say they're fighting for laws to help protect these homeowners and provide them with the right resources, while Brown is hoping he'll be able to get his home back. In East Flatbush, Valerie Ryan, News 12, Brooklyn.
So, am I crazy? Because it doesn't seem like that should happen. Let me share this as well, because I saw, and they spoke to him a little bit more deeper in this particular video. Let me make sure I have it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, here it is. So let's go to this, because this shows this gets a little bit deeper. Let's see, can I? Yeah, I can do that full screen. Okay, perfect.
In the middle of the night, this is what the Brown family in Brooklyn woke up to. Strangers using power tools to try to get into their home, only to find later those strangers had a legal right to be there.
First of all, let me ask this. Hang on. Let's go back there for a second. If you legally own the home, why are you doing it in the middle of the night? To try to get in. Why didn't you just do it during the daytime? This is the crazy part. They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong, and yet they got the deed to the house. They know somebody's living there. They know it's owned by somebody. And so to try to get in, guess what? They do it in the middle of the night. Because they don't want to be seen. Why else would you do it in the middle of the night? Why not just do it during business hours? Why not do it in the daytime? Let's continue.
Their home, only to find later those strangers had a legal right to be there.
I don't want anybody to go through what I'm going through. It's more than I can bear.
Fillmore Brown bought his home back in 1996, worked 7 days a week for more than 2 decades to pay it off, only to learn it was sold out from under him.
So he had it paid off for almost a decade. It's not like, oh, well, he's still paying on the house and the bank is going to seize it. No. It is paid off. If it's paid off and it's his, see what I'm going with this?
It's rough. It's tough. I cannot eat. I cannot drink. I cannot sleep. I cannot stay at the house.
That was your American dream.
That was my dream, only dream.
Back in 2019, Brown had just finished paying off the mortgage, but says he didn't know he had an unpaid water bill for $5,000. Did you know that you had an outstanding water bill?
No. If I did know, I would pay just as I paid the balance.
Here's what happens in New York City with larger unpaid water and tax bills. The city sells the unpaid bills to what's called a trust, which is a group of investors. It's then up to those investors to collect the money with interest. If the balance isn't paid, the home can go into foreclosure and be bought at auction. That's what happened to Mr. Brown.
So let's go back to this, okay?
Happens in New York City with larger unpaid water and tax bills. The city sells the unpaid bills to what's called a trust.
So the unpaid bill, the city sells. So that already to me is a problem. And the city's like, well, we need to make our money back somehow. And I get it, right? At the same time, this is why I think that all public utilities should be paid for through taxation. It should not be paid out of pocket. That's why, see, this is one of the reasons why I think it should all be paid for through taxation, not out of pocket. Because the problem is that you run into stuff like this. So now a vital resource that we need to live is now paywalled. Water, the thing that comes from out of the sky, is now paywalled. Where in reality, just like we pay for the fire department, just like we pay for the library, we can pay for water service. We can have fun just like that. Do you pay out of pocket for fire department? Do you pay out of pocket for the library? Hell, you don't pay out of pocket for whenever you call the police. And yet we have to do that for water. What? That sounds excessive. Let's get into this. Let's continue. So,
which is a group of investors.
A group of investors, basically meaning a bunch of, rich a-holes, essentially, that made a deal with the government so that they know that there's going to be people who can't afford it. And so that's going to be sold to them for cheap, right? Because they're going to buy that debt for cheap. And then they're going to put a lien on. But if you know you're going to get a whole house out of it, would you make it very noticeable that, hey, we're about to put a lien on your house. We're about to take it if you don't pay this bill off. So here's basically how the debt collector system works, right? Let's say you owe a medical debt, right? Let's say for internal medicine, right? Trust me, I've had plenty of these. Anyways, so internal medicine, you say you owe them $1,000, you couldn't pay it. What internal medicine does is that they will take your bill for $1,000 and they will sell it to a creditor, right? A debt collector for pennies on the dollar. So they may sell it for $100, right? They're gonna make some money off of it. They may not make the entire bill, but they'll make some money off of it. So they'll sell it for $100, right? So the debt collector will buy that bill. That's $1,000 for $100. And then that debt collector now owns your debt instead of the person you originally paid. Then the debt collector will call you up, ring, and say, hey, you owe this money for $1,000. How would you like to pay? And so they spent $100, but now they're going to be getting $1,000 from you, even though you don't owe them money. You owe the internal medicine doctor's money. But now that bill's no longer, they don't hold that debt anymore. So therefore, if they don't hold that debt anymore and the money you were supposed to pay to them, then why in the hell would you pay it to the debt collector? Oh, all because they bought the debt. And so now they want to get that money off of you. And this is why debt collectors are able to negotiate, because they got your money pennies on the dollar. So whatever they negotiate down to, they're still making a profit. So this is what the trust is, basically. They're basically debt collectors. And so whether you pay the bill, the outstanding bill, they're going to make profit. Or if you don't, and they put a lien on the house, that means they just got a house, and then they can auction it off and still make money, which means that they're making hand over fist. Because of that, what? Public-private partnership. And who ends up the creek without a paddle? You and me. See how this system works? It's very predatory. It's very corrupt. Corruption is deeply ingrained. It's part of the fiber of the being of the system. And people wonder, well, why does this happen? Because we don't call the shots. You and me, we regular folk, we don't call the shots. It's the cappies. It's the parasites. They're the ones that call the shots. And then here's what happens next.
It's then up to those investors to collect the money with interest.
With interest now, with interest.
If the balance isn't paid, the home can go into foreclosure and be bought at auction. That's what happened to Mr. Brown.
And then they auction the house off. Because they auction the house off, now it's no longer under Mr. Brown's name. It's under some investor's name who already had the capital to buy it, but he bought it on pennies on the dollar. So this house that was originally bought, and let's say it was back in 1996, so that house probably in New York, that house probably cost them about a good, I'm guessing at the time, $250,000 ish or something. I'm just off the top of my head. In New York, in Brooklyn, in a house like that, in it looks like a brownstone, $250,000 in 1996. Around there. Those of you who are from New York, go ahead and quote and tell me if I'm right or wrong. But around there, right? And so he paid it off within 20 years. Instead of a 30-year mortgage, he paid that thing off in 20 years, working 7 days a week. And so now he owns the home, and yet somebody probably paid pennies on the dollar. So he probably paid a good $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for that same home. So he probably paid 10% less than the principal and got a house. And now, since that house is now worth over $800,000, $800,000, guess what? They got that money on pennies on the dollar. They're going to put a few $1,000s into that apartment, and then they're going to take it, flip it, resell it for, guessing it's Brooklyn, so they might sell it for about a 1.1 or $1.2 million. And they're going to make a killing off of it. Off of somebody else's what? Labor. Off of somebody else's what? Hard work. The capitalist parasites are the leeches that some people complain about. Oh my God, these people are leeches on society. Guess what? It's the people that sit in those big high-rise buildings wearing suits. Those are the welfare queens. Those are the people who do not believe in hard work. We complain about, oh my God, these people, they don't believe in hard work. Look at them, they're living off of food stamps. I don't care if you get $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month worth of food stamps. That is nowhere near what the people in Manhattan are sucking out of the government, sucking out of our taxpayer dollars. Nowhere near. Let's put the blame where it lies. On these parasites. We need to stop focusing on the very little of what people who have no power do, and we need to put our focus on the people who have power. Stop your ire and hatred over people who can't change your life in that most effective way. And it's these people in power that do. This is one of the reasons why I get worked up, because we're so focused on hating on other people who can't materially change our lives, who don't materially affect our lives in a meaningful way. And we're hating on them because of either their identity or immigration status or gender or perceived mental status, something like that. When in reality, they're not our biggest issue. They're not even an issue. It's the people who are basically the leaders, the capitalists, the people, the captains of industry. That's who it is. And we can sit here and blame these different groups all day long, but ultimately, are they really the ones that's making our lives worse? Are they really the ones that's making your rent go up? Are they really the ones that's making food unaffordable? Are they really the ones that's paying you starvation wages? No. No. It's the people that stole Mr. Brown's home for pennies on a dollar. That's the people. It's the people like Blackstone that have bought up thousands of single family homes that are now trying to rent it out and make us into a nation of renters. That's who it is. And their lackeys are the politicians. Let's focus our attention on the people in power. Punch up. Don't punch down. Punch up.
It's stolen from me, and I need it back.
The city says they sent numerous notices warning him of a pending lien, notices Mr. Brown says he did not receive. Court documents then show the investor served someone at his home with papers in November of 2020 during the height of the pandemic that they were foreclosing. Mr. Brown claims he didn't get it.
I would pay it with no problem.
He lives on the top floor of his home and rents out the lower 2 units to other families.
He said he didn't know anything about this, and I believe him.
The attorneys working on his case say he has paid thousands of dollars in taxes and water bills since then.
He just paid a water bill this year, in the thousands of dollars. So it's just heart-wrenching.
She says once his old bill was put into trust, it did not show up on his current bills. The two payment systems aren't connected.
Now, one thing I will say is I ain't got no love for landlords. And technically, Mr. Brown is a landlord. He rents out the bottom half, but he's still living in the same house. So technically, but it's also, he might be retired and on a fixed income. So it may be hard for him to be able to survive, which I get. But the problem is, this system made it so that he has to be pushed to do something like that instead of having his house to himself. And it pushes it so that people can't have their own homes. They have to rent out rooms and, they can't have their own. Crazy system we live in. And the fact that he was paying on the water bill, it's like, where did that $5,000 come from?
To be some notification that there's another bill out there to be paid.
The city's Department of Finance responded with a statement that reads in part, "Our goal is never to see a homeowner lose their property. Last year, we implemented reforms to specifically prevent unfortunate situations like this from happening."
But this wasn't back in 2019 and 2020. This is last year, 2024. So guess what? But this happened before him. So therefore, were y'all actually looking out for these people before that? No. So therefore, he should be grandfathered into this. And y'all should have looked out for him, but you didn't. Jesus Christ.
By giving property owners more time, information, and resources to resolve their debts. As for Mr. Brown, his attorney's now trying to get a judge to pause the case so she can explain to the court what happened. Do you have hope?
Yeah, I have hopes. If I didn't have hopes, I wouldn't be here today.
We will be following his case, and he's not alone. Just this year, more than 6,800 people had their water liens put into a trust for not paying their water bills. Our ABC data team found a majority of them live in minority neighborhoods.
Oh, you see now. There we go. A majority of them live in minority neighborhoods, basically black and brown. And you guys want to know why I take this so seriously? Let me explain something to you. A few years ago, back in New Jersey, my grandmother, my late grandmother, owned her own home in Berlin, New Jersey, which is South Jersey, a few miles from the border of Pennsylvania, where you can cross the bridge into Philly. And she was late on paying her taxes for her home. And somehow, some way, somebody paid the tax. Or she was very late and they placed a lien, something like that, on her home for her being very late on her taxes. Now, my grandmother was elderly. She was in her 80s. Somebody paid on the house. And that person got ownership of my grandmother's house. The home that my mother and the rest of us were supposed to inherit. She's owned that home for over 50 years. 50 years. That was literally the first home built in that area in Berlin. Very nice neighborhood. And they took it. Dude got the home and he gave my elderly grandmother and her bedridden husband, my step grandfather, they gave them 3 weeks to get out. 3 weeks. My grandfather was elderly and bedridden in a hospital bed in the living room. And they took the family home from under us. The home that my mother and me and my brothers were supposed to inherit, that was supposed to stay in the family, is gone. A Black American family's home is gone. My mother's never owned a home. She just turned 74. I've never owned a home. I'm 41. Never own our own homes. Because financially, we just can't. And yet, the home that we could have inherited, and this wasn't just any home, this was a 4-story house. 4 stories. With a garage and a massive backyard. Bomb shelter in the backyard included. Remember, it was built in the 50s during the height of the Cold War. That home is now gone. My grandmother didn't know what to do, so she had to get my mom and uncles and everybody to come help her move. And you got to remember, that's 50 years of memories, 50 years of heirlooms. My grandmother was a seamstress. You know those big factory sewing machines that are attached to the table where you can see the spinning wheels and the gears and stuff? My grandmother owned 2 of those on top of the other sewing machines that she had in the house. I'm talking about sewing machines that were built in the 50s, in the 40s. My step grandfather, a Korea War veteran. And that house was taken from us. He had to be placed in a home, in a nursing home. He died shortly afterwards. My grandmother had to move into an apartment. She hasn't paid a mortgage in years, and so suddenly she had to pay rent. And the rent was very unaffordable. And she was by herself. And my grandmother died in her apartment alone. This is why I am as passionate about this story as I am. Because this system rips away whatever we have at some semblance of generational wealth, of just keeping our heads above water. It rips it away. Even if my grandmother had passed when she did, I could be living in New Jersey right now, still in my grandmother's house, with still the pictures on the wall, with still, the den with all the encyclopedias, that same old floor model TV that we used to watch when our summer vacations when we came by. Could have kept that home in the family. Something that my nieces and nephews could look forward to living in and having when they get older. But not anymore. And so when people go, why can't you just pull yourself by your bootstraps? Well, because our boots keep getting stolen. Don't believe me? Just ask the Black community in Durham. Just ask the people in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just ask people from many of the different Black Wall Streets that were built in this nation that were destroyed. So this is why housing is such an important thing to me. Because nobody should go without it. It is an absolute human necessity. And I think that we have to change the system in order for us to survive. It's funny, my grandmother was anticipating for my uncle to come home. My uncle was in prison, and a few months before he was set to be released, he died. And he would have been out earlier, but the state kept moving his prison release back, and back. He served 15 years in the New Jersey State Penitentiary for unarmed robbery and drug possession. Unarmed. But he fooled the cops. That's why they were so pissed off at him. And so every single time he was supposed to get out, they'd move it back. So that really debilitated him. He was supposed to be released, come home to the house where we were supposed to inherit. He was supposed to help my grandmother out. and lived there. It was a 4 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms. Four bedrooms, 4-story. And he died. So yeah, this happens over and over, but this is why I say we do mutual aid, we build dual power, and we get ourselves out of the system, because only we can save us. You can't depend on these politicians. And I'm talking about literally a blue state, New Jersey. So guys, please do what you can and join a mutual aid organization, do mutual aid, build dual power in your respective cities, in your local areas, because we have to save us. We are our only heroes. Yeah, thanks. So go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much. And let me check to see if we have any tips on Rockman. Yep. And then we will get into the rest of the show. And by the way, please make sure to take that poll, guys. That poll is very important. It gives me a glimpse into what we're dealing with all as people in this country. And let me check to see if we have any Rumble rants. I don't know if we do, but if we do, then great. Let me see. Rumble rants. We are... Yeah. Okay. 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 So let's go into the Rockman chat really quick. All right. So thank you for this, Roger. It says, hey, you Zoomers, get off the TikTok and try punching the clock. I know it sounds cruel, James, but there looks like there's going to be a lot of CDL positions opening up. When they say they take the job Americans won't do, let's prove them wrong. The more they take drivers off the road, then your pocket products that you wish to buy don't get to those store shelves. I keep hearing from around the country that once deportations happen, the next day there'll be lines going around the block of citizens applying for those jobs, which means now they got to pay higher. The average annual salary for a truck driver in Ohio is around $77,786. This can vary significantly by experience and type of driving, with some drivers earning over $95,000. While there's no fixed pay for simply driving through Ohio, drivers in the state are often paid by the mile, with rates differing based on the company, cargo, and routes. I know it ain't right what's happening to them, but I'm just saying a lot of us can use them jobs when them benefits. He says, play this at the end when you finish all your segments. Savvy and Sagar, really good arguments over property taxes, given both conservative and socialist perspective. Here's the twist. Savvy makes the conservative argument while Sagar makes the socialist argument. He says they make both solid points. So like I say, I really love this debate about property taxes. It wasn't about who was right, but who makes the better argument. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Roger. I'll get to that towards the end. Let me go into the rest of the chat. Let's see. Let me address this really quick. Alpine Lake says, with respect, the segment where you laid out food and housing troubles does not work while also complaining about stopping illegal immigration. Pick one. ICE is a separate story. They're abhorrent. First of all, if you haven't seen my show before, I talk about different segments. This isn't just a housing segment. It's just both my segments focus on housing. But I chose to also include that story because it is a very important story, because a viewer that's been with RBN since the beginning when we were FHL, this is happening to their family member, and I found it necessary to be able to talk about this. Also, I cover multiple segments, varying on different topics, so I can do the fuck. It is my show anyway. But yeah, so yeah, with respect, I mean, you can always wait till later and then skip forward if you wish. So yeah. Let me see. Now let's go to, let me see. Let's go to the next one. Bad Wolf says housing is a human right and should be free. There are other countries where it is. Yeah, there's a lot of countries where they also, like the property tax, you pay one time and that's it. You don't have to pay. Like I know China, you only pay property tax once, and then you don't have to pay property tax every single year. Let's see. Trend the Great says, if you want a new foundation, destroy the old system and rebuild from the ashes. Thank you very much for that. Jacqueline says, one of the few good things about the UK is that people won't be in danger of losing their homes if they're behind with the water bill or the council tax, which I think the UK version of a property tax. I didn't know they call it a council tax. That's very interesting. Let's continue on. Marlo says, right, and other countries don't prosecute or even arrest you if you're stealing food, baby supplies. We are being effed here in the Imperial Core while we F over almost all the countries, for real. Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. All One Same says, how can a water bill from 2019 onwards total $5,000? And the thing is, it was $5,000 in 2019, meaning that it's like, that's $5,000 in 2019 money. That's not $5,000 in 2025 money. Your money went longer 5 years ago. So, like, what in the world? Like, that's one of my biggest questions. Like, how in the world could you incur a $5,000 water bill? Like, I could understand, hell, even electricity. Like, it would take, like, 2 years of not paying at all to incur that much. Ann from Ohio says, probably started out as a $100 bill, then accumulated as it got bought and sold by various collection agencies. Maybe. Wait. Harlem Hellfighter says, this normal New York City water bill are quarterly, and it's like $1,200 normally. Oh my gosh. So you have to pay quarterly? What? New York be on some weird stuff, man. Wait, quarterly bills? So that's $48,000 $4,800 in a year. That's almost $5,000 just for 1 year of worth of water bill. And if you're doing $1,200, wait, hold on. Is it $1,200 quarterly? Because that's like $400 a month. That's $400 a month. And if your water bill is $400 a month, that $400, baby. I'll be buying them gallon jugs and just keep the water off and use them gallon jugs. You know what I mean? If it's $1,200 a month quarterly, that's $400 a month. It's ridiculous. My God, what in the world? Are they shafting you guys that much in New York? Now I understand why y'all moving down here. My goodness, crazy. Okay, Harlem Hellfighter, thank you very much for this. Says it's called a deed in lieu of sale. It's criminal, but they've legalized it. It's a tool of gentrification, honestly. This indeed theft is. Yeah, so that's the problem, is these things that they're doing are legal. So look, if you have a thief that's in charge of that pushes for legislation so that they can steal, then technically it's no longer illegal, but it's still wrong. Like slavery, chattel slavery was illegal. Well, chattel slavery was legal, but it was wrong. So this is legal, but it's wrong. Just because something is legal doesn't make it morally right. And as we're seeing the contradiction here. Because when you have thieves running the government, they get to get away with actual theft. And they can say, well, we can do it because it's legal. Wow, man. Wow. Marxist says maybe they could not do it during the daytime. What else? But I'm still sticking with my my thoughts there. Sean Rocker's like power drilling at night while they're in the house, right? Kurt Boss says America spends trillions on weapons and they do not care about you. They're at a club and we're not in it. Yep. Kurt Boss says, I heard they're selling fresh air in Finland. And Anthony says they charge us for air if they could. Wow. Right underneath each other. Wow. Lucy says, disabled on Social Security disability insurance. The Social Security Administration made me homeless with the year's backlog. My check is so tiny, it's a miracle I found in a legal slum micro apartment. One more rent hike, and I'm back on the streets. Take that poll, guys. Yeah, this is a lot of us. A lot of us are subject to this. Baba Yoga says, bless you, Lucy. Same here on Social Security disability insurance. And they keep raising the rent. They have never done that for people living in subsidized housing. All changed since the pandemic. Yep, absolutely. Checking to see if I have any more. Who I haven't. Let's see. Foolish Coyote says, as long as most of them are black or marginalized, who cares? Other than blacks and marginalized people, we have no influence in Washington, D.C. Yeah. And yes, Anna Rodney says, what a wicked world we live in. Why do we have to be crapped on like this? I struggle holding back tears. 50 years ago, your grandma was there. Shaking my head, you would think they would honor her loyalty somehow. Aziz says, I pay about $1,000 a year in water bills in Australia. My God. Good Lord. Says, I pay maybe $1,500 a year just outside of Detroit. This is crazy. People should not be paying this much for water. Roger says, I grew up in Freeport, a village with its own power and water. Both were municipalized. The power is reliable and the water is cleaner than the rest of Long Island. And this is why I think that we should have municipally owned utilities. And then Roger says, 2005 power outage that stretched from Ohio to New York, Freeport was on. Okay. Thank you very much for that. All right, everybody. So moving on, I want to get into this. But first, before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to the patrons on Patreon. Look, guys, we try to do what we can as far as not just our words, but our actions as well. Actions speak louder than words. And so we try to do what we can for the community, and we try to encourage people to do the same. Look, this system is on its way out. And in order to help our neighbors, we do mutual aid, and we try to point to that as the solution. The solution is really us. We are the solution. But also we try to inform you of this system, what it's doing and why it's doing what it's doing, and answers and solutions and how we can actually change it. And so you guys make this possible so that we may be able to continue to communicate this to people and inform, but also to encourage people to do more among their neighbors, to help and solidify their relationships with neighbors so that we can ultimately build a better world together. So thank you so very much to all the patrons on Patreon. You guys make this happen every single day. So appreciate it. Let me see. And then Vic says $100 a month just for water. We have septic, Washington. Wow. Thank you guys for all that. All right, so and then we'll cover the poll after this next story. Please make sure to take the poll. At the top of the chat, it says I have to worry about paying my rent mortgage every month, every 3 to 6 months, once or twice a year, or I never worry about rent or mortgage. Please make sure to take that poll while you're watching as well, and we will get the poll results towards the end. So let's get into the next story. I want to get into this because this is also very local to me, and I think we need to talk about this. All right, so let's get into the thumbnail once again. So we already talked about Fillmore Brown losing his home over an outstanding water bill. And now we're going to go into homelessness explosion. So we are going to get into this right now. This is crazy. What if I told you that over the last 3 years, the homelessness rate in a particular city has rose over 150%. This is not hyperbole. This is not conjecture. This is literal. The city of Orlando has actually had a over 150% increase in homelessness from 2022 to 2025, and it is not slowing down at all. So let's get into this because this is extreme, and people are going, well, how is this happening? And we know the answers how it's happening, but we're going to get deeper and we're going to discuss this. All right. So let me share this. So this is here. This is Central Florida Public Media. I want to share this. It says homeless count 40% of Orlando Metro's unhoused people are children and seniors, right? This came out in April. So I want to go to this. And let me enlarge so you guys can see this. Okay. So it says overall, 2,781 people were found living in shelters, inside their cars, or outdoors on a single night, including 1,090 who were living unsheltered. Although these numbers are on par with last year's, the agency reported unsheltered homelessness is still 156% higher than it was in 2022. 156% higher than 3 years ago. If you told me that the homelessness rate in Orlando was going to jump 25-30%, I would be like, that's ridiculously high. If you told me 50 to 75%, I would be like, damn, what in the world is going on? 156% increase in 3 years? That's intentional. That is displacement. That is moral depravity on the part of the parasite class. And it is harming all of us. All of us. And so I think it's important that we get into this because so many people, and people wonder why is crime going up? Well, because there is a relationship between poverty and crime, right? As we noticed, like what happened with Donald Trump employing the U.S. National Guard to Washington, D.C., and taking over D.C. Metro Police, at least temporarily, and hyper-focusing on the homeless. Well, you know, poverty has a very close link to crime. So let's share this really quick. Let me just read just a couple of lines out of this and then we'll continue on. It says the relationship between poverty and crime. Okay, so it says very often poverty creates conditions that increase predispositions towards crime. Some significant parameters of this relationship can be viewed in the following sections. It says economic desperation. Society's poorest may be under much economic stress, which might push them towards crime as a survival option. When basic needs such as food, shelter, and health are not available, individuals may commit theft, drug trafficking, and other crimes just to get by and feed their relatives. It says insufficient educational employment opportunities. There are usually lower educational levels and less access to higher job opportunities associated with poverty. This poverty, with a lack of education and jobs, can easily lead to an individual into what is known as self-perpetuating cycle of poverty and crime. In the absence of any other viable economic alternative, they take up crime as their means of livelihood. I'm going to say something, and some people are going to look at me weird for this, but it is what it is. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it right now. And I want you all, everybody who is within earshot of me, to hear me clearly. Drug dealers are hard workers. What? Yes. They have to be on it for hours at a time, running up and down the street, having to make sure that they don't get caught by the police, having to make sure, and this is not by no means me endorsing or, anything like, saying that people should become drug dealers. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is that is also a career that is extremely demanding. On top of it, you can get fired at any time. You can be punished at any time. And you're not subject to the forces of the state where they could discipline or hold accountable your boss. Because that's the way it is. But at the same time, most of them are not living high on the hog. They're just trying to get by. They may splurge on a few things once or twice, but it's not like crazy. That whole like view of like, oh my God, they're drug dealers and they're splurging. No. You're not the low level guys, not even the mid level guys. It's the people at the top. So they also turn to having to do illegal means in order to be able to survive. But it doesn't mean that they're not hardworking, right? It's crazy. It's just what they're doing is not legal. And the problem is a lot of times people talk about, well, they shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, okay, well, if you can get a big lump sum of cash in one night versus having to work 2 weeks in order to get a paycheck, which doesn't cover what you need to cover. Yes, it is the more legal route and it's the safer route, but does it really save you from losing your home because you don't have your rent in time? Or does it save you from being hungry because you can't get food? You know what I mean? People will do things in order to survive, and they will do a lot worse things because the system is built this way. And it's a vicious feedback loop, because then they do these things, they get caught by the police, then the police arrest them, they put them in jail, they put them in prison, and then guess what? They become slaves to the system, thus having to make products and services for these big corporations, because these big corporations actually employ the private prison industry in order for them to be able to pay cheaper. So therefore, now these people who are doing illegal things, well, now they become chattel slaves under the system, because chattel slavery is still legal within our country. It's just as an exception, when somebody's duly convicted. Go ahead and look at the 13th Amendment. I'll wait. So the problem is that it's the system where poverty is a huge influence when it comes to crime. If you were to lower the poverty, then there would be a lowering of crime at a commensurate rate. Would it completely get rid of crime? No, because rich people commit crimes too. The problem is that they're not committing crimes out of desperation. And so if you have people who are less desperate, then guess what? They're going to be less likely to turn to what? Crime. And then the opportunities are not there as much. Plus, also, and anybody can tell you this, especially people who work when it comes to people like Sabby who work in higher ed, or I have friends who have worked in HR. Guess what? When it comes to looking for jobs, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And a lot of people who are in more economically displaced areas, we don't know people at these larger firms and institutions that make a lot of money. So therefore, guess what? Even if we had the skills, when we apply for those jobs, they're not going to take us because we don't know somebody on the inside. And so this is part of the problem. And so I wanted to share that because a lot of times people will say, well, these people just need to pull themselves by their bootstraps. But the thing is, they ain't got no boots to begin with. And by the way, the pulling yourself up by your bootstraps was actually a joke originally, because it is impossible for you to take your shoelaces and then lift your entire body off the ground by your shoelaces, right? It's impossible. Therefore, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps is actually seen as an impossible task to do. Because humans by very nature are a communal species, and therefore we need to depend on who? Each other, in order to be able to do such a thing. This is why individualism doesn't work. Because no human has ever survived through individualism. They have always survived through collective action. Even billionaires are not self-made, because it took taxes and it took workers to create those roads in order for them to be able to use those roads to get to their business to business. It took them paying workers in order to be able to build those businesses, even though they didn't pay them a living wage. What did it take? It took public schools, right, in order to be able to pay for the education that they got if they went to public school. It took the hospitals that are paid for through our tax dollars, or that are subsidized by our tax dollars, in order to be able for them to be born. No human has ever existed on this planet without collective action. It does not happen. Humanity does not exist in a vacuum. So I want to share another story. Well, not story, but I want to share what the results of housing or housing insecurity is doing to increase the homeless rate. And so this is a story that came out of Orlando. So let me share this right quick. When I saw this, I was like, yo, this is wicked. Let me see. So now this isn't one family or two family. This is dozens of families. Let's get into this. This is out of Orlando.
Are on the brink of homelessness tonight after police knocked on their door and told them to get out. They'd been staying at the Howard Johnson Hotel on I-Drive. Channel 9's Nick Pampatonis witnessed the evictions, and Nick, most of the people had lived there for a few months.
Yeah, and as of tonight, they will have a few more days to get out. It was supposed to be a few hours ago when we were here, but they put these new signs on the doors, giving everyone till Monday because so many people would have ended up on the streets.
We're just left here. No management, no nothing. Nothing.
Until Wednesday, Melanie Hall worked as a housekeeper at the Howard Johnson on International Drive. Now she's one of 72 families trying to find another home. Police going door to door, telling people they had to be out by 6 p.m. The eviction a day after residents paid their rent in cash. Travis.
72 families. 72 families. Not people, families. That's hundreds of people. 72 families told to get out. And you paid your rent already? What? Now you see why we're talking about the homeless rate is skyrocketing in Florida. It's skyrocketing everywhere. And let me tell you something. Technically, those people are still were still homeless even before this happened. Because most people, they don't opt to live in a rundown hotel or a motel. Right? You know why they have to live in a hotel? Because these hotels don't do credit checks. Because sometimes they're a little bit cheaper than renting an apartment. But you're literally living in 1 room. You're not living in some multiple room apartment with a living room, separate bedrooms, a full kitchen. No. These aren't these types of places. These are 1 room where you have a family of 3, 4, 5 that are living in 1 room with 2 beds. So these are people who are homeless, but they're still technically housed. But because for a lot of these people, they couldn't gather up, the security deposit and the first month's rent, in order to be able to get a place, or they could gather the security deposit and the first month's rent, but they couldn't pass a credit check. So now they have to live in a motel or a hotel. And so this is what happens because of our housing policies and our housing situation in this country. And now you're being told to get up and get out a day after you paid your rent. And this Howard Johnson, I know exactly what this is. This is literally on International Drive. I forgot. I don't think it's called the Sheraton Hotel anymore. It used to be called the Sheraton Hotel Studio City, but they changed the name. I forgot what it's called now. But if you were to take Kirkman, it's right at the crossroad of Kirkman Road and International Drive. If you take Kirkman Road, right, going west, you will run into Universal Orlando. Right? You go about 15 minutes down I-Drive, you'll wind up right where? SeaWorld. That's how close this is. Right? That's how close this is. And this Howard Johnson, which is right near Fun Spot, is closed now. And all these families, where are they going to go? 72 families. Where are they going to go? Are they out on the street now? I hope not, but that's likely where they have to go. Let's continue.
Ryan said he, his wife, and their dogs had no other option, and the cash register with his rent disappeared when management took off.
Electricity problems, Wi-Fi problems, rats, roaches. It was pretty much everything in there. We're going to go back to being homeless, and the city of Orlando basically frowns on that. So we may end up in jail eventually.
We're all in the dark. Everybody's running crazy over there, trying to figure out where they're going, how they're going to get there, and all that stuff.
The parade of U-Hauls slowing after city staff arrived. We watched them tell tenants they struck a deal with OUC to keep the power on until Monday morning, giving the families a few extra days to find their footing. They said,
so tomorrow morning, that's when OUC turns off the electric. Tomorrow morning. By the way, do you know how hot it is outside right now? It's cloudy right now. Let me check temperature. It's 84 right now. That's with constant cloud cover. Like, it is a cloudy day right now. If those clouds weren't there, we'd be in the mid 90s. With heat index probably closer to over 100. And this cloud cover is really thanks to Hurricane Aaron. So these people are now under threat of literally being out on the street because of the way this system is built. On top of that, they got infestations of rats and roaches. So they've already had to deal with that. But now they have to deal with being out on the street. And these are the people that we talk about when it comes to building up our communities and helping and doing mutual aid.
It said nonprofit groups will be on site Thursday morning to try to get them assistance.
She got 6 kids. bro, we all need help, bro. You know what I'm saying? They giving us the Monday. Monday is not enough, bro.
And you can see that notice on the now locked lobby door. 10 o'clock Monday is when the power gets cut off. We do not know how many families remain here tonight. We understand it's a small number of that original 72. Live in Orange County.
This is who is being affected the most. And no doubt, these people who are being evicted from this hotel, most likely, they all worked in that area of International Drive. Some of them probably worked at Universal. Some of them probably worked at the litany of hotels that are up and down, including maybe the Rosen Hotel. They probably worked at the Holiday Inns. They probably worked at the Ramadas, right? Maybe a Marriott. They probably worked there. They might have worked at many of the restaurants, maybe the Chili's over there, maybe the IHOP down the street. Maybe some of them worked at the Fun Spot. Maybe some of them worked at Aquatica. Maybe some of them worked at SeaWorld. All you have to do is take number 8 bus and boom, you're there. But the problem is that this is the type of situation that these people are living in. And never mind their kids. Their kids. School started back in Orange County on August 11th. So now these kids, they don't have stability. So where are they going to go? Are they going to go to, further east to the in-town suites on OBT? Is that where they're going to go? Are they going to go to some other extended stay place? Even though their prices are going to be higher and families can barely afford food? By the way, that Howard Johnson, there is no regular grocery store that's close by within walking distance that I can think of. No. There's a Publix. You literally have to pass Universal Orlando down Kirkman to get to the Publix. And then there's a Publix on iDrive. Yeah, there's no nearby grocery store, meaning they're also living in that hotel, and it's technically a food desert because the closest grocery store is actually is that a Walgreens or CVS? Right there on Universal Boulevard and International Drive. Besides that, it's just gas stations, convenience stores. There's a 7-Eleven, there's a Circle K. I think that's it. Like, I know that area because I used to work at Universal Orlando. So this is how bad it is right now. And do you know how much it costs to move? Those U-Hauls ain't cheap because, yeah, they say $19.99 for that van rental, but you also have to put a down payment as well, which means you're gonna have to put another like $99 on it. So it's about $120. And then on top of that, they add money for gas usage. And that odometer or the fuel, they rig it so that it seems more empty than what it is. So then they charge you more for gas. So then what are these people going to do? And then if they wind up on the streets, then you're ready to blame, not you, but some people are ready to blame them for being out on the street, even though they're doing what they can to survive. Like I said, 156% increase in homelessness in 3 years. 156%. It's skyrocketing here. Part of that's due to gentrification, because a lot of these areas, they are exploding. By the way, not too far from them, down the street on the other side, going east, Universal Orlando just opened up Epic Universe. So that's a huge amount of money that's been spent in that area, which also is going to make the prices of everything go up. The rent's too damn high, people. It's too damn high. So let me share this as well, because higher rents lead to homelessness. Let's take a look at this.
To multiply in our area, many people really becoming homeless for the first time this year.
Yeah, and tonight, ABC Action News reporter Wendy Lane meeting a local veteran who says in his darkest hour, the Salvation Army helped keep him off the streets.
Michael Levy has seen a lot, especially while serving as an Army Ranger during the Gulf War.
If I made it through that, I feel like there's really nothing that could stop me.
The strength and courage he earned on the battlefield has kept him going, even after he became paralyzed from a fall 3 years ago, and more recently was diagnosed with terminal illnesses.
I have end-stage COPD and emphysema and cancer, yes. Doctors told me there's really nothing more we could do for you. They said live every day like it's your last, and that's what I'm trying to do.
But Levy was tested yet again when the housing crisis hit this year. His rent went up and he could no longer afford it.
Never in a million years would I think that this would happen to me.
Levy found himself homeless, but thankfully he has not had to live on the streets. Since September, he's been staying at the Salvation Army in Tampa, which has special rooms for veterans that
So this goes to show that the rising rents are part and parcel of why so many people are going homeless. Especially if you have not kept up pay with the rate of inflation, people are going to go homeless. People are going to end up out on the street. The crazy part is we literally live in a country where so many people say that they support the troops, and yet the people who are veterans end up out on the street because they can't afford rent. Why are they paying rent if they sacrifice their lives or they put their lives in danger for the country? By the way, I'm not playing the rest of this because this is basically going to be praising the Salvation Army, which the Salvation Army, excuse me, is just is part of the nonprofit industrial complex that actually thrives on people being unhoused, so that then people continue to donate to them. And the people at the top of the Salvation Army, the people who are really the directors and people at the top, they're making hand over fist. They're making a whole lot of money, while the people at the bottom aren't making a damn thing. And really, you know, they say that they're doing good for people by housing the homeless, but at the same time, most of that money actually goes towards the people at the top anyway. It's the same thing with Goodwill. This is why I don't like those type of foundations. The nonprofit industrial complex depends on people becoming homeless so they can continue to make money. It's very vicious. It's very vicious. This is why we don't do we don't do charity. We do mutual aid. But the point is that rising rents are causing more homelessness year over year. Now, I want to give a shout out to Roger Meadows for this one because, of course, we're talking about the Out of Reach program from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. I want to share this because it's happening everywhere. And you guys know, like, this is getting bad. So this is a 2025 National Low Income Housing Coalition out of reach. And so let's take a look at Florida because this is my state. Last year was number 10. It was the 10th most expensive state. It went up. It's now the 9th most expensive state in the country. A red state in the South is the 9th most expensive state out of 50. You need to make $37.27 an hour required to afford a 2-bedroom rental home. Or you have to work 115 hours a week, needed at the minimum wage to afford a 2-bedroom rental. Right now, what is the minimum wage here in Florida? The minimum wage here in Florida, as of right now, for the next 7 days. So for the next 7 days, it is $13 an hour. On September 1st, it goes up to $14 an hour. You need to work 115 hours a week in order to be able to afford an apartment. That's how bad it is. This should not be. I'm going to show you guys also this as well, because if you want to go a little bit deeper, we definitely can. But let me share this with you guys too. And thank you very much to Roger for this. And so here's Florida. Of course, it says you have to make $37.27 an hour, right? Now, where are the most expensive areas in the state of Florida? Let's take a look here. Most expensive areas are Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach, Kendall, Monroe County, West Palm Beach, and Tampa. So in Fort Lauderdale, you need to make $45.92 an hour. $45.92 an hour in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Fort Lauderdale. The 5th most expensive is Tampa, St. Pete. Now, I am going to say this. Last year, Orlando was in the top 5. Tampa beat Orlando. I bet you Orlando's number 6 now. Tampa beat Orlando. But make no mistake, Orlando's definitely within the top 10. Certainly. And so because we have to make this much in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, do you think the people in that Howard Johnson are making that much? No. No. And so because of this, then guess what? People are going to get homeless, are going to become homeless because they can't afford the rent. The rent's too damn high. There's gentrification that's happening. Gentrification all over. There's gentrification happening in downtown Orlando. Gentrification happening near the Millennium Mall. A lot of black and brown neighborhoods, they're gentrifying the hell out of us. We were just talking about in the prior segment. Here's New York. New York's number 3. You need to make $46.03 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in New York. Right? So let's go into that. So let's go to New York. Okay. So in New York, some of the most expensive areas are New York City, Westchester County, Nassau, Suffolk, Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, and Middleton, and in Kingston. So in New York City, you have to make $53.46 an hour in order to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. So that gentleman that we were talking about, Fillmore Brown, right? If he can't get his house back, guess what? He needs to make $53.46 an hour. This man needs to make 6 figures a year in order to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. You need to make 6 figures a year in order to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. 6 figures. You need to make over $100,000 to afford a two-bedroom. And you wonder why people are becoming homeless? People wonder why? Let me see something. Let's go to D.C., Washington, D.C., right? You have to make $44.50 an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment in Washington, D.C., and yet Donald Trump is saying, oh, well, we got to get these homeless people out of here. Well, the rent's too damn high. Look, $44.50 an hour. It's number 5. It's more expensive in D.C. than it is in Florida. It's crazy. Why is it so expensive? Well, look at who's buying up all the homes. Look at the gentrification happening. Let's go to a red state. Another one. Let's go to Texas. Texas, you need to make $29.64 an hour, right? Some people may think, oh, that's not that bad. But their minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. You have to work 164 hours a week in order to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. Who can work 164 hours a week? The most expensive areas are Austin, Round Rock, Dallas, Martin County, Midland, and Kendall. So you need to make $37.48 an hour in order to be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment in Austin. And so people talk about, oh my God, the homelessness rate is going up. What's wrong? People automatically want to think, oh, well, it's just people just being irresponsible. They don't know how to spend. And here's one more thing I need to say. I need to speak on this. No amount of financial literacy classes is actually going to solve this, because in order to be able to have financial literacy, you have to have what? Finances. You got to have finances in order to be able to do financial literacy. But if you don't have the money, then what can you do? Also, it's kind of hard to do it when wages have been stagnant. Here's a fact. The minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. And it wasn't even Obama that signed the increase to raise the minimum wage. It was actually done by George W. Bush. It was just under Barack Obama where it actually went into effect. So it wasn't even a Democrat. It wasn't even a Democrat who pushed for it. Yeah, he signed it. Yeah, it became law. But then in 2012, or hell, he could have tried to push for a minimum wage increase in 2015, right before he left office. But did he? No. especially when there was an election going on. Everybody was talking about $15 an hour. But no, it didn't happen. So now we're seeing the effects of the ineffectiveness of the Democratic Party. And we're also seeing the cruelty of the Republican Party because the Democrats work in tandem with the Republicans. And we're seeing homelessness skyrocket right now. And this isn't an individual issue where people just need to spend more wisely. No, it is systemic. It's systemic. Because why in the hell would you see 156% increase in homelessness in only 3 years? 3 years. That's systemic, baby. That's not an individual problem. Nobody just wakes up and goes, well, I think I'm going to be homeless today. Take the poll, please. I want people to see what's going on, right? And so I find it awful that we continue to live in this system. And then we sit here and go, well, what do we do? Look, RBN has been telling y'all what to do. We've been giving recommendations of what is the best course of action. And look, it is tough out there. It's tough for all of us. But can you set aside time? Can you? To do something for your neighbor? And we're not asking you to save the world. We're asking you just to help improve it just a little bit for one person. If 100 people do just a little bit for somebody else, then guess what? That's a huge amount. But it starts with you and it starts with me. And that help means doing what we have been recommending. Mutual aid, building dual power so that we can get out of this system because we can only get out together. We cannot depend on these two parties. We cannot depend on this system because it's not going to do it. It's going to happen even more as it's going to get worse. And I'm going to share this as well as one of my last points. Because I think this is also an important piece. Make sure I get it. Why Blackstone is quietly buying up American homes and what it means for the rest of us. Let's take a look at this. This came out earlier this year. In a housing market where supply is tight and rents keep climbing, one of the biggest buyers isn't a local landlord. It's Blackstone, a global investment giant with more than $1 trillion under management. It says the firm has quietly built one of the largest rental housing portfolios in the country, spending hundreds of thousands of apartments and single-family homes. Supporters say its deep pockets can improve properties and create new housing. Critics worry it's another sign that Wall Street is tightening its grip on where Americans live and how much they pay. It says real estate is a core division for Blackstone. According to CNBC, the firm has an ownership interest in at least 274,000 rental housing units, likely making it one of the largest landlords in the country. Its portfolio includes apartments, single-family homes, mobile home parks, and student housing, with concentrations in Sun Belt states such as Texas, Florida, and Georgia. The company didn't always focus on residential rentals. After the 2008 financial crisis, Blackstone became one of the largest owners of single-family homes through Invitation Homes, later selling that business. In 2021, it re-entered the market, acquiring Home Partners of America and Tricon Residential in 2024, adding tens of thousands of properties. Today, its single-family portfolio stands at about 58,000 homes. It says Blackstone executives say their investments follow job and population growth. It says the firm often renovates properties, which says it improves quality and adds supply, although upgrades can also lead to rent increases. Buying is currently cheaper than building in many U.S. markets, according to the National Association of Home Builders. Limited construction paired with rising demand is keeping rents elevated, a trend that benefits landlords but strains many tenants. So that is the big picture. We have big corporations like Blackstone, not BlackRock. BlackRock and Blackstone are two different companies, but Blackstone that is buying up these homes, which is also adding to the increase in rents, which is adding to the increase in homelessness, which is why it is skyrocketing across this nation. And this is why private equity should be banned from owning homes, as well as anything in healthcare, including hospitals. Private equity should be banned from these areas because that also pushes the homeless epidemic. It's horrible. And now we're becoming a nation of renters. But the thing is, we can barely afford to rent now. So this is why we talk about doing mutual aid and building dual power. So we can stop these leeches, these parasites from consuming us and everything around us. So constantly, whenever you drive by one of those hotels or motels where you know people are living their lives in, and you know they're there because they can't afford another place, if you're doing mutual aid, see if you can help out people in that area. Just think about them, because it's out here. It's hard out here in these streets. Just do what you can to leave the world better than you found it. All right, so go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in for that. Let's get into, let me check to see if we have any Rumble rants, and then we will get into everything else. Okay, looks like we're good. No Rumble rants right now. Thank you very much. And then check the Rockvin chat. See if we have any chats in Rockvin. Let's see. Okie dokie. All right. So let me share this. Roger wanted me to share this. This is only 2 minutes. So he talks about Savvy making the conservative argument against property taxes, where Sagar makes the socialist argument, even though Sagar is the conservative. It's kind of interesting. Let's take a look here.
Because check this out. This is wild. I couldn't believe she said this. Marjorie Taylor Greene said, hi, we need to completely abolish property taxes. You heard that right, folks. We need to completely abolish property taxes. It forces us to pay rent to the government on property that we own. But if we don't pay property taxes, the property that we own gets taken away from us. That should never happen in a free country. Say, what? I don't know what is happening. I'm like, what is happening to Marjorie Taylor Greene? It's weird, like listening to this. And I said to myself, like, it's almost like I don't know what she watches, but it almost makes me wonder, do you guys think maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene could be watching like some of the left, like commentary shows? Because I don't think that everybody just watches like their niche, right? Like, I think like, if you're like me, I watch a little bit of everything. I don't think that everybody that's Republican only watches right-wing news. And I don't think everyone that's Democrat only watches like liberal news. And I'm starting to wonder, like, what if she's been watching like different, like, I don't know. But I agree with that. This is something that I've been complaining about for quite some time. I never agree with property taxes either. To me, I don't agree with excise tax either. Like in some states, they call it car tax. In Massachusetts, it's called excise tax. My thing is, after I paid my car off, why do I still have to pay taxes for it? The car is paid off. Why am I still paying taxes on this car? And I feel the same thing about the property taxes. Like, why do you still have to pay property taxes for a property that you own? It gets crazier. Listen to this. There's more. Secondly, health insurance is.
Okay, so I saw that live. Yeah, I agree pretty much for the most part. My thing is, like, if we have property tax, you should pay it once. You shouldn't continue to pay it. So, like, for instance, let's say you get on a 30-year mortgage, right? And your property tax is broken up and added with the mortgage. By the time you pay off that mortgage, you should not have to pay the property tax, or you should be able to pay off the property tax all at once, and you shouldn't have to pay any more property tax. That's honestly how I think. Like, no. If that were the case, then my grandmother would still have her home. She might even still be alive today. She'll be turning 91 next month. Yeah. And so, yeah, that part I agree with. The Sagar part, I think that you were referring to, I don't necessarily have time because I have to get to a meeting, Roger, and I'm sorry. But what I will do is I'll put the link in the chat for people to watch. So I'll put the link in the chat for people if they wish to watch Sagar's point. And yes, Vic says 80% of our property taxes go to fund local schools. I think that our schools should be funded through not property tax, but I think it should be funded through the state. It should not, and they all, like, for the school districts that are underserved, it should be equitable. So let's say you have a school that's in a majority, like, affluent white neighborhood, right? But then you also have a school that's in a working poor neighborhood. So the school that's affluent, I mean, if you want to continue to keep give them how much they're giving them, but you should increase and give even greater to the one that's underserved until they reach the same level as the one that's affluent. I think you should equitably, like, do that. But the problem is that, you know, that would mean that you would also have to increase taxes on, I think, things like Wall Street speculation. I think you should increase taxes on huge investments like art and yachts and things like that. Go ahead. I don't care. My thing is, like, you know, I say tax the billionaires out of billionaire status. Does that make me radical? You bet your ass it does. Yeah, billionaires shouldn't exist anyway. Y'all stole that money through taking away our surplus value, so therefore we're going to put the surplus value back into people. But I have to get going because I literally am going to be late for my meeting. Sorry, guys. I think we're having a meeting today. Wait, are we having a meeting today? Hang on. Let me make sure. But let's go into the super chats just to make sure. Oh, yes. Roger says DM and rock. I can't do the DM right now, but I can do the rock. Let's go into the Rockman chat. All right, so I read that. Says, bro, I gotta say that I really love this debate on property taxes about who was right, but who makes the better argument. And he said, this is why I don't trust Zoran. Yeah, I don't have time to read that. I'm sorry, Roger. I don't have time. But I can share that in the chat as well. I'm sorry. And I got to read this poll, and then I have to head out. All right. Thank you very much for that. And yes, Thomas, wait, there are people who don't have to worry about being homeless at the end of the month. Yep. And I'm going to be honest with you. I believe that we all shouldn't have to worry about it. We should all never have to worry about being homeless ever again. So let's go ahead and take a look at that poll. Let me see. All right. So out of 95 votes, I have to worry about paying my rent mortgage. 65% said every month. I'm one of those 65, baby. Then you have every 3 to 6 months is 5%. Once or twice a year is 3%. And then I never have to worry about rent or mortgage is 26%. Yeah. And I'm happy for the 26%. I'm going to be real. I'm happy for y'all. I wish we all were in your shoes. Unfortunately, we're not. But hopefully one day when we change the system, we can be in the 26% shoes. Because I don't want us to ever have to worry about it. So thank you very much to everybody for that. Look, guys, I'm going to head out. Jaybe says, better yet, October 8th, take the day off and don't spend anything, pack a lunch and go to the beach or park. Thank you very much for that. Guys, I'm going to head out. This Tuesday, I have a guest. I forget who my guest is. I'm sorry for that. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to have Shaquille. His handle on Twitter is Shaquille Sunflower. So I'm going to have him on. We talk about news stories as well. So that's going to be a great show. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in because this was emotionally intensive show for me. But yes. So everybody take care of yourselves. All right. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. I will see you all in the next one. Mwah, forehead kisses. You guys have yourself a beautiful day and have some cookies and milk. All right. Take care of everybody. Bye-bye.